morning, everybody, and welcome to Late Night in Canada. I'm your host, Clare Blackwood. How was everyone's week? Can't get better than mine here in lockdown. My cat and I had a blast.
Everything is awesome. Everything is cool when you're part of a team. Everything is awesome when we live in our dream.
I have an awesome show for you tonight. This week, I spoke to Filipina-Canadian rapper and nurse Han Han and Uplift Kitchen co-founders Antonia Lawrence and Emily Carson. But first, let's get straight to the news with This Week in the North. The big story on Monday was Trudeau's conversation with Vice President Kamala Harris, the VP's first call with a foreign leader since taking office. According to the Prime Minister's office, the two discussed Canada-US relations, Kamala's time at a Montreal high school, and the pandemic, specifically our mutual access to vaccines. And I believe we actually have a transcript of that last talking point. Pretty please, may I have some of your vaccines? I look so bad in front of my friends at press conferences. Jagmeet Singh keeps making fun of me, and Aaron O'Toole says he's going to steal my lunch money if I don't give him at least 4 million doses by the end of question period. Lol, no. In other Monday news, PEI confirmed 2 new active cases of COVID-19. Not Matthew and Marilla, but how? Hashtag renew Anne with an E. The federal government announced on Tuesday that despite tightening air travel restrictions last week, they had no immediate plans to force travelers entering Canada by land to quarantine in hotels. Mary Liz Power, spokesperson for Canada's Public Safety Minister Bill Blair, stated that we have not rejected the idea of imposing further measures at the land border, and that harsher land border policies could come at a later date. Ah, yes. That reminds me of that classic scene from zombie movie Dawn of the Dead. Shouldn't we be worried about zombies running after us? No, it's okay. Zombies can't travel on foot, only by plane. Oh, that's great. Ontario's Wyerton Willie predicted an early spring on Tuesday, although no one saw the beloved groundhog. Instead, what we got was this.
Where's Willie? We need to do a prediction.
It's an early spring.
That woman went on to state that Wyerton Willie was definitely still alive and definitely not delicious. It was announced on Wednesday that Schitt's Creek was nominated for 5 Golden Globes, including Best Musical or Comedy TV Series and Best Actor nods for all 4 leads. I honestly don't even have a snarky joke for this. I just want to say that I love that journey for them. Also on Wednesday, Ontario's Minister of Education, Stephen Lecce, seen here seconds before opening his mouth wide enough to swallow your delicious, delicious child whole, announced that all Ontario children would be back to school by February 16th, a move that was received with skepticism from the community due to widespread concerns about the new COVID-19 variants, lack of smaller class sizes, poor classroom ventilation, and new safety measures that basically amount to, we'll ask your children to only lick each other's faces on odd-numbered days. In response to the criticism, Lecce shrieked, clicked his mandibles, and flew off to his cave to feed on the blood of children until the next COVID wave. And that's the last we'll hear about him. On Thursday, oh my God, not you again, shoot, back to your cave, no one likes you. Lecce announced that he's considering canceling March break to stop the spread of the coronavirus. Just help me understand, Stephen. Do you think the virus only emerges during the holidays like a virulent Santa Claus or Grandpa Clyde's opinion about the gays? If you cancel March break, I guarantee you that the only thing coming down your chimney at Christmas is an angry swarm of exhausted, underpaid teachers. And yeah, they know when you'll be sleeping. As Ontario declared over 1,600 cases on Friday, it was reported that Doug Ford is expected to begin reopening the province again this week, but with an emergency break to quickly lock things down again should cases begin to rise. Other fun car features include evasive steering to allow Doug to dodge questions about why we're reopening when we're still at 1,600 cases a day, remote start capabilities so he can quickly drive away from responsibility for the inevitable third wave that this will cause, and sexy solid gold rims for running over those pesky libs when they whine about paid sick leave. Ford might think he's being cautious, but there's no question that the rest of us think he's
a few fries short of a Happy Meal.
This was This Week in the North. Now, I know that last week I broke up these segments by showing you videos of pandas being really dumb, but listen, I'm a professional news person now. I've changed. I can't just throw in a video about adorable animals whenever I don't write a proper segue. That's why, this week, I worked really hard to make a serious, politically relevant transition between these segments. And I'm just kidding! Look at this dog who thinks he's people. Even as coronavirus cases slowly decrease in Canada, the troubling new issue is that of the multiple COVID-19 variants slowly making their way across the country.
New variants have now been detected in 6 provinces. At least 195 cases have been confirmed. The full extent of the spread is not certain because Canada's capacity to screen for variants is limited.
Fun! I'll be taking a more in-depth look at what those variants are and what they mean for Canadians in this week's The Focus. Variants. What are they? That sounded like a much smarter introduction in my head. Basically, a variant, by definition, is a version of something that differs from the norm, like three-eyed fish, cherry vanilla Coke, or, if you ask my family, my fashion sense. More importantly, coronavirus variants are gaining steam around the world, raising concerns about increased transmission and decreased vaccine efficacy. Scientists have identified a number of COVID-19 variants from wildly different places, each with slightly different qualities. Brazil's variant screws with your antibodies, South Africa's is more infectious, the UK variant is more transmissible, and there's even one from Denmark that has weird mommy issues and is strangely obsessed with avenging its father's death. But for this segment, I want to talk about the top 3, UK, Brazil, and South Africa. It'll be like the Olympics, but terrible. I want to break each one down, but before I do, it's important to stress that a lot of what's being said about these variants and the virus in general is still being researched, which means that a lot is still up in the air. Getting answers from scientists right now is like shaking a magic 8-ball. Will COVID keep changing? Yes. How will it affect the current vaccines? Reply hazy, try again later. Will I finally go on a date this year? Very doubtful. Damn it! The UK variant, or B117, was identified early last December in Great Britain. What we currently know about it is that it has a lot of mutations on its spike protein, which allows it easier access to cells and makes it more contagious than other versions of the virus. It may also be more deadly. Last month, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, seen here selecting his next hair transplant donor, stated,
There is some evidence that the new variant, the variant that was first identified in London and the South East, may be associated with a higher degree of mortality.
As much as I hate to learn science from a man who looks like a post-divorce Ron Weasley, the UK variant now accounts for over 20% of Belgian cases and is the leading variant here in Canada, with several recent outbreaks attributed to it. The South African variant, or B1351, was also reported in mid-December after it quickly became the main variant in several provinces there. As well as being concerned that it can spread much faster and target healthy cells more easily, scientists are also finding that vaccines might not work as well against it due to its specific mutations. Think of it like the shittiest member of the X-Men, a claim I'm sure Anthony Fauci would call medically accurate. And finally, the Brazil variant, or P1, is also more transmissible, and its mutations help it escape the antibodies we developed from the older versions of the coronavirus. It's like your ex-boyfriend who shows up on your doorstep and is like, hey babe, I've changed. I've gone to therapy for a week and have a beard now. And your brain is like, yes, he is clearly a different person. And then you date for a month before you realize that he's just as awful as he used to be, but now has several additional STIs. P1 hasn't reached Canada yet, thankfully, since it's currently spreading much more quickly than the UK variant, but it has been found in the States. Luckily for us, though, our borders, especially our land borders, are shut tight and... oh, wait. So, now that we know what these variants are about, what do they mean for the vaccines currently being developed around the world? As a brief refresher, remember last week when I compared how the vaccine works to your instinctual reflex to punch people whenever you see a Volkswagen Beetle? Well, these variants are kind of like if that beetle put on a jaunty little hat and you, in your discerning wisdom, went, "Hey, that looks different. Are you sure that's a..." But by then, your opportunity to punch someone is gone. You're left having to punch yourself, which isn't nearly as effective, and the car has attached itself to you with a fancy grappling hook like it's starring in a Fast and the Furious movie. I think I lost the metaphor there. Basically, the virus has changed just enough that the vaccine might not be as effective in recognizing and defending you from it as you'd like. The European head of the World Health Organization has expressed concern about the current vaccine's effectiveness against the variants. The South African variant in particular has proved slightly less susceptible to antibodies created by Pfizer and Moderna's vaccines. But the good news is, mRNA vaccines are more adjustable. Moderna has already stated that it will be adjusting its booster injection to match the South African variant more closely. Science! It's crazy! Tests are still being done to see just how much the variants will mess with the length of immunity, antibody neutralization, and overall efficacy of the current vaccines. But the good news is that the vaccines we do have are still extremely potent by normal standards. So just because they aren't quite as good against the new variants does not mean you need to freak out just yet. If Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson were your bodyguard, and one day he was like, "Bad news, Claire. Normally I can punch 20 bad guys at once, but today I can only punch 18. You're not going to fire the guy, you're going to buy him a drink and thank him for potentially saving your life. Here in Canada, these variants are spreading at a time when provinces like Alberta, Ontario, and Quebec are looking to reopen, and variants found in Ontario, Alberta, and BC have evidence of community spread, which isn't good. We're in a terrifying race to vaccinate ourselves before they grow into a larger issue, and with the current problems surrounding our vaccine rollout plan and inability to mass test for the specific variants themselves, that race isn't going so well. Chief Public Health Officer Teresa Tam stated, "This is the initial signal that we need to be very vigilant and very cautious about the relaxation of those public health measures." Basically, stopping the spread is still the most important thing we can do right now. Scientists are urging people to double up on their masks and reduce their grocery store trips, as there is evidence that it might take much less than 15 minutes for us to be infected with the new variants. So basically, do what you've been doing, but harder? Thanks, government! Whew! That's a lot of science. The word variant doesn't even sound like a word anymore. Variant. 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 This has been The Focus. My first guest tonight is Hannalee Pableo, or Han, an amazing Filipina-Canadian rapper, poet, and cardiac operating room nurse. We chatted about her latest album, her connection to the Filipino-Canadian music community, and how being a nurse isn't quite as different from being a musician as you might think. Take a look.
Babae, ikaw ay isang silungan na mula sa buwis na walang buhay gala. Nagbibigay ng direksyon sa nawala. Mahalaga, kumare, nakamamangha ang bihag mong ganda, na hindi lang sa dikit ng iyong mukha, kundi pati sa puso mo't kaluluwa. Mga lalaki sa iyo'y sumasamba.
Hi, Hannalee. How are you?
Hi. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm so excited to talk to you. So basically, your sophomore album, or Duha, it came out last year, and it is so killer. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It came out actually on my birthday. I was like, oh, that's
Oh,
fun.
you did?
Yeah.
Oh, so is it a Capricorn or is it Aquarius?
Aquarius.
Oh, is it Aquarius? Okay. Sorry.
Yes, we are weirdos, and I know I love it. And I have to say that what I love about your music is that even if somebody doesn't speak Tagalog or Cebuano, it doesn't matter at all, because your flow and your rhythm just they just make you want to dance.
That's the whole point.
Yeah, it's so universal.
Oh,
And
thank you.
yeah, of course. And well, thank you for making it. And so you talk a lot in your interviews about how you use your music as a form of resistance against, kind of totally assimilating and keeping your heritage while also being in Canada. So, I mean, what has been your response from the Canadian Filipino community?
You know what? Actually, for the most part, it's all positive.
I'm sure.
I feel like the greatest resistance is to just be yourself. So I wanted to reflect that on the music. And, as an artist, your responsibility is to just be yourself, really. You don't become an artist to please other people. So I'm basically just being myself, and I like music, and I like music that makes me dance. So I wanted my own music to sound that way, that people from all walks of life can enjoy, old, new, even if you're Filipino or not. Like what you said, it's something universal and something that everyone can appreciate, even though they don't understand the language. And if they can understand the language, they can also appreciate it more, even more, And the initially when I started music, my target audience are people who are like me, like a first generation Canadian immigrant, and I came here in my 20s. I was 21 when I came here, so I already have a stronghold of who I am. Like, I know where I came from. I know I know exactly who I am. I don't need to have I didn't feel that identity crisis that a lot of Filipino Canadians feel who were born and raised in Canada and yet still Filipino, like navigating that crossroad between how to be Filipino while being Canadian and how to be Canadian while also being Filipino. And there's that tension that everyone feels. Like, I also felt that over the years that I've been here in Canada, and I've been here for a long time now. And pretty much when I started doing music, I realized that there's a lot of these collectives forming in the Filipino Canadians community, especially in the arts. And there was one collective that I was part of, but I felt like most of the people who were part of that collective were Filipino Canadians who were born and raised in Canada. So they didn't really have sort of like a different perspective on what it feels like to be actually Filipino, born and raised in the Philippines and coming to Canada. So I thought in the beginning, I was like, oh my God, these people are so amazing and so skilled and talented. And like, what else can I put on the table in this collective that I'm part of? Because it was composed of different artists of different from different disciplines, and they're all sort of like excellent in what they do. And then here I was, the newbie, and I've never done music before in the way that I'm doing it now. So I was like reflecting on what I can add to the table instead of just going with the flow. Like, I wanted to contribute something that isn't there yet. And I realized that a lot of them don't even speak Tagalog. Like, they understand, but they don't speak it, nor have they heard Visayan language, which is where I'm from, which is the language that I'm actually native to me. So I just decided, you know what? I'm just gonna rap in Tagalog. That's it.
No big deal. Just rap in Tagalog. It's cool.
Because it's also what comes naturally to me,
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be pretending to be someone else that I'm not, and it also wouldn't sound good if you translate it into music. Like, and you can see that when you perform or when you record a song and stuff. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, and so I have to say, I think you're the first artist I've met ever whose day job is a cardiac operating nurse. So I mean, like,
There's not a lot of us, I guess.
no, shockingly, no. I mean, I've been a barista, I've been a server. That's fine. I mean, but this is another level. So I mean, I have to ask you, like, how do you do it? Like, how do you manage those two wildly different careers?
Yeah, everyone asks me about that, like how there are two different worlds and stuff. But actually, if you think about it, if you think about it, they're both complementary. Like whatever it is that you do that's outside of your art actually feeds your art.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to find a way where the crossroad meet, And because nursing per se teaches me a lot of things that I apply in music, especially in the music business, because nursing teaches you about leadership. It teaches you about interpersonal relationships. It teaches you about human behavior
Mm-hmm.
and how to work with people and like teamwork. And those things you can apply in the music industry in terms of like performances and how you deal with like certain people and how you work with people you collaborate with and stuff like that. And nursing per se is an art. At the same time, it's a science. But music is kind of the same way. It's an art, but it's also a science.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and so these are not really opposite worlds. I would think about it as a complementary to each other, because whatever it is that I'm experiencing in the real world or in nursing in my job, like it feeds my music as well, like
That was actually going to be a question that I had for you, which was like, how does nursing inform your music? Do you like come home and you're like, oh my God, nursing shit, I'm gonna write a song about it, like that kind of thing?
No, not exactly like that, but the core of nursing is social justice. The way Florence Nightingale started nursing is when he saw people in during the war, and she took care of them, and sort of like the injustices of the war perhaps, and the lack of like the importance of humanity during like in those times. And so they always say that the core of nursing is social justice, and it's something that speaks to me, and in the sense that sort of like feeds my music in the way what I think that I'm capable of doing is just, like I wanted people who listens to my music, especially those first generation young Filipino-Canadians, to feel good about themselves, like to make themselves feel like they're enough, that they don't have to be anybody else but just themselves. And with all the discrimination that you encounter and the professionalization of first generation Canadians, which I've also experienced because I was already a nurse in the Philippines when I came to Canada, and I have to go back to school to get the Canadian standard. So I'm not speaking about things that I'm speaking about because I read about it or stuff like that. I've also actually personally experienced those things. And when it comes to racism, I've also experienced those things in my first few years of being in Canada, but I've grown so much that I learned how to shut it down when the moment comes. And my mom is a live-in caregiver. So stories of migration and immigration issues and migrant worker issues are not foreign to me because I experienced it in my own family. So in a way, music has just become a channel for me to express myself. And I wanted it to be more of a positive thing. Like how there are so many like songs out there that, I wanted it to be just how do you call it? Just a position where you're saying something, you deliver it in a very aggressive and negative tone, but then you can dance to it.
Right.
Yeah. And then people think, oh, you're so lot of angst, but then yeah, there's a lot of angst in the delivery, but the things I'm saying are not actually like negative or angry and whatever. But and also I want the whole song to be something that you can dance to, that you can celebrate to. And I also wanted to reflect that negative emotions are, they're important. They're as important as positive emotions, and that you need to express those things in whatever channel you desire. And you shouldn't, how it's not socially acceptable to be angry, especially if you're a female,
Yep.
because it's not ladylike.
It's not ladylike. We should just squash that down, make nice, pretty music.
Yeah, but I would argue that I think you should value anger in the same way that you value happiness and stuff.
I
And
agree.
It's just like a spectrum. It's opposite ends of the spectrum, and you should actually acknowledge that within you. And it's more of like managing your emotion. And that's what they call emotional intelligence.
Yes.
And for as long as you don't acknowledge that in you, that you have this angst, this anger, and all these negative emotions, then you can never really, we can never really grow emotionally. And I had a lot of growth in the process of my music. So I treat my music as more of like my own therapy.
I like that.
And in the way that, so especially with my second album, Urdua, my first album was in 2014, and it took me a long time to follow up the second album, because I just didn't want to do it because people are telling me to do it,
Yeah, it's a lot of work just because people are telling you to do it.
Yeah, I want to do it because it's time to do it, and I also feel like I'm in the right place to do it,
Well, I highly recommend everybody check out your album, Urduha. It's amazing. You can find yourself on Bandcamp, right?
Yes, it's panhand@bandcamp.com.
Awesome. And sorry?
The full album is my own self-healing, and in the process, and everyone who listens to it can also heal themselves while they dance.
That's the most nurse thing I've ever heard.
Exactly.
I love that. That's awesome. You can also follow you on Instagram at Indayhan. So that's INDAYHAN. Henley, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thanks.
My next guests are Antonia Lawrence and Emily Carson, the awesome co-founders of Uplift Kitchen, a food security initiative created to serve Black, Indigenous, and other racialized communities in Toronto and surrounding areas. We talked about their organization and how you can get involved. Antonia and Emily, thank you so much for joining me on Late Night in Canada.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It's such a pleasure to meet you, and I'm really excited about your organization. So, I would love for you to just tell me about Uplift Kitchen, how it works, and how you basically decided to start all of this off.
Yeah, so Uplift Kitchen is a food initiative that is specifically targeted towards Black and Indigenous communities in Toronto and the GTA. We also help to assist other racialized communities. So from the very beginning, we were providing meals, produce, and then other necessary items. So there are a lot of families we have who have young kids. So clothing, as well as like formula and diapers and things like that. We have recently restarted because we took a little bit of a break. But right now, while we're rebuilding our connections and our resources, we're just doing produce for the time being, which seems a lot more people, like a lot of people within our family groups do need a lot of produce more than they need meals. They want to make everything themselves. So we've been fortunate enough now to be able to lean on other organizations who have connections, so we can get more fruits, veggies, other really great things. But yeah, that's what we've been doing for the past 7 months.
Oof. Yeah, it's really interesting because we really try, and from the jump, we were very dedicated to making sure we were doing it different than how a lot of other like people giving out food do. Like I grew up going to food pantries and soup kitchens, and I know Antonia has been involved with a lot of that as well. And you get really terrible food, and you get things that aren't healthy for you. That's not going to make you not hungry in 2 hours because they're simple carbs and they're fats and they're really processed and high sodium. which is killing our communities. Like, it is killing people with the social determinants of health that aren't allowing them to get fully actualized holistic food. So it's really making sure we're feeding our Black and Indigenous and other racialized communities food that A, they want to eat, B, historically is tasty and good, but not creating like the health disparities that we've had over the years that are slowly killing our communities.
I understand. Yeah. And was this a joint project that you two started from the very beginning? Was this like you sat down and kind of thought, this is what we're going to do, or has it developed?
Yeah, I mean, never let two activists live next to each other. We were both very, very, very passionate activists in our own communities, as well as we've been doing it most of our lives. And so during the Black Lives Matters protest in Toronto and around the world this summer, we were really looking at what we can do and what we could provide to people who have been protesting and maybe we're going to have to shelter in place, but also people like myself and Antonia who maybe couldn't attend the protest just for like safety and security. I have health problems, so I wasn't able to go out. And we didn't want to risk our family and our friends that we live with by possibly catching COVID. So we really came up with this idea that how are we going to feed people who need to get food or who are sheltering in place after protests or who are sick with COVID or are going to work every day and putting their lives on the line.
Can you tell me a little bit about how your organization actually runs? That would be awesome.
Yeah, so we are volunteer based. So at present date, I think the last time I checked, we have over 229 people signed up right now as volunteers.
That's
obviously not all of them help at the same time, but that's the number we have. And then over 130 families that are signed up. Families, individuals, every family size you can think of. Singles, couples, extended,
5 kids,
families, everybody.
Mom,
Yeah,
dad,
so we work primarily through volunteers and also like donation based too. So any of the funds that we get are via donations. We're hoping eventually to be able to start accessing more like bigger like grants and things like that too, because it takes a lot to run something like this. And if it were dependent on our funds, this would not have taken off. So
I understand that.
Yeah, we're very, very grateful for the people who were like, yeah, from the very beginning, super excited to help us. Couldn't wait to get their, hands in and make things. And we have people who drive. We have people who cook and bake. We have people who just like share our initiative with everybody that they know. And that brings in even more people. From the very beginning, one of my really close friends helped us make a website, which we were thankfully able to then make even better in the past few months. Yeah. So that has been really great because not everyone's on Instagram, right? So yeah. Having a website available for those who are like, social media. So that that was really great. But yeah, that's how we function. We do deliveries twice a week. Fridays and Sundays. And right now we've moved to like a bi-weekly delivery system just because we want to make sure that we're keeping in accordance with any sort of lockdown rules. Mm-hmm. We're keeping our families safe, our volunteers safe, and trying to limit any sort of contact anyone has with each other. And hopefully it's going to work. Everyone seems really receptive to that. So that's really nice. And it also gives us time to, have a week in between to sit, process, reevaluate anything else that we need to do.
Sleep, breathe.
Yep. Because we both for a while both still work full time while we're doing this. So, we got to pay attention to the jobs that pay us as well as the project and the initiative that excites us. So in order to have that stability, sleep, like you said, is very, very important.
We were in the beginning, we were doing it every week. We were putting out 3 kinds of 2 to 3, like a side and a starch and a meat product, 3 different ones for probably 100 people at that time. And never sleeping, doing our regular jobs too. We were just burning. I don't even think there's one end or another end. It just kind of hit the middle and just burning. And it was I think we both, and then we, after, when we actually were forced to take the break because of COVID and because of the fall after Thanksgiving, with the lockdowns that were put in place, then we really had to step back and look at our model and really look at how we're working as a team and our volunteers are working, and what might we need to change and how we're going to be adaptable to kind of whatever the world is going to throw at us right now.
Yeah, how is this sustainable for your company, and how is this sustainable for you and your mental health and your own physical health as well? Totally get that. So I would love to know, for the people who are watching the show, like, how, if they would like to get involved with you, what is, like, you know, priority number 1, 2, and 3 for you in terms of, like, who you would like as volunteers for?
Yeah, we always need people who are proficient in cooking and baking. When we eventually are able to get back into the commercial kitchen that we have been so fortunate to be able to rent, we're hoping to be able to then, you know, cook the things that we can out of there, and then eventually, when the world opens up again, have more people in the space with us to do that. But in the meantime, having individuals who can take that time to dedicate every other week to make a bulk amount of items. We have a few restaurants that have tapped in who are like, hey, we can donate X amount of frozen meals, or we can give you X amount of produce. So, like, that's been super great. We always need drivers. We always need, you know, people to pick up things for us during the week if they can. Like, those people have been so integral to making sure that we can do what we do, because we don't have vehicles. So hopping on transit is kind of like right now. And no one wants to take an Uber all the way around Toronto because that gets pricey. So drivers are always great. But on our website and on our Instagram page are links to becoming a volunteer. And then I send out weekly emails to our volunteers and to our families just to give them updates on anything and make sure that they're in the loop of any changes or any additions to things. So that way everyone knows what's happening. They don't have to depend on our social media to know. They can have a direct link to us, which is super helpful.
Yeah, and if they want to, if none of those things apply to them, there's always donations monetarily through our website, but also get creative with it. You and a bunch of friends want to learn how to cook something or do like a chop challenge, get in touch with us. Like we'll host, we've done a couple cooking classes now, and we have a couple other people doing events where they buy all the same groceries and make meals and make like a certain thing, and just everyone chips in or everyone pays like $25 to get in on this class. And so we're really open to kind of doing that and getting people more invested than just donating, but like figuring out how this is a kind of learning and teaching experience for everyone.
And if you are somebody who wishes to partake and receive food, that information is on your website as well?
Website and our Instagram as well. Yeah. So the sign-up sheet is super simple. We just need your name, your address, any dietary needs that you have, the best way to contact you, and then your family size. And that's it.
Awesome.
That's all we do for people.
Perfect. And well, you can follow Uplift Kitchen at upliftkitchen.ca or find them on Instagram at upliftkitchento. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us, Claire.
I think what you're doing is awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With all this talk of viruses and variants, I want to end this episode on a lighter note with a quick segment I'm calling All Fun, No Fear, where I talk about a story that made me laugh last week. Here we go. A Cape Breton couple made headlines on Wednesday after reporting that they'd seen a two-headed, two-winged bird-like creature hanging around their home. Aw, so cool. But what kind of bird is it? Let's just try to enhance here and take a look. Stephen Lecce, oh my God, what are you doing? He's evolved, my God, run Nova Scotia, run before he makes your children go back to unsafe schools. I'm sorry, that was way more fear than I expected. I will work on that for next time. Until next time, however, this has been Late Night in Canada. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.